All right. Hello. Welcome. Welcome to the annual training. We're going to shift gears a little bit. Same people, same PowerPoint. We're just moving on. And just so you know, we are recording this separately from the annual meeting so that the two will be separate and we will make them available to all of our members. So our annual market training, so glad that you're still here with us. It doesn't look like anyone dropped off. So this is really, I think, what a lot of you are here for, is to get some updates and to have the chance to network and talk to each other. And I'm going to just briefly get us going, and we've got lots coming up. So in the next hour and 20 minutes, I'm going to talk a little bit about some tips for holding vendor meetings, and then we're going to send you into some breakout rooms so that you can talk amongst yourselves about that. Then we've got a special guest, Tiffany Jeske, who's joining us from South Central District Health. She's going to talk a little bit about Health Department 101, some of the things you know, some of the things that you need to know, and some of the things that you really need your vendors to know. Dawn is on from ISDA Idaho Preferred. She's going to give us a really a smidgen of how ISDA can help you market your markets. And we've got some ideas for further training down the road. Then we will again break into those small group discussions. And this time we're going to talk about how you recruit and retain reliable vendors, and let you share some of your biggest headaches and best practices. And then to end us on a high note, Dave is going to come back in and he's going to talk about what roles volunteers can play in your market. The markets in Boise have had tremendous support from volunteers, and I know many of you, your markets do too, or could benefit from having an influx of free quality help. And then we'll close out by talking about what's next for all of you and some opportunities that are on the way. So I'm going to jump right into it. Whoops, too fast. I'm going to jump into it too fast. Here we go. All right. I'm going to set the stage for our group discussion, just really briefly going over some ideas for training adults. Some of you may hold vendor meetings. Some of you may not. This is a good opportunity for you to think about if it's the right fit for you and your market, and why you should be doing it, and how to make it really successful. So I'm going to focus on some things that I've seen over the years. So over the years, I've been invited to many of your vendor trainings to either present or to share or to just be on hand as a resource. And I've observed a lot over the years. So I'm going to share some of the things that I've seen, and then I'm going to talk about just some general best practices when training adults. And then we're going to let you break off into your own groups and really talk about what has worked for you and what hasn't. So things I've seen in successful annual vendor meetings. So anytime that atmosphere is welcoming and encourages conversation, this is really important. Your vendors may stand next to each other week after week, but that doesn't often mean that they have time to get to know each other or even know who their fellow vendors are. And so an annual meeting that puts that into the agenda, some networking time, this is where you might facilitate some of those interactions between your prepared food vendors and your ag vendors, so that they can be, making those connections and using more local product, whatever. Food is always appreciated, right? I mean, our markets are about food. They're about, many things, but food at a meeting can really help things along. I apologize that we don't have any yummy food for our Zoom training. It's really sad. The best ones I've seen have a content that is combination of the things that they must know, but also some fun how-tos, right? So some actionable take home for those vendors, something that helps them in their own business, as well as imparting what you need your vendors to know before the market season starts. It's helpful if those guidelines and operations are clearly presented at the vendor meeting to maybe help reduce some of the stress once market starts and some of those questions and conflicts that come up. Even if they're vendors that have been there for 20, 30 years, it's good to address those common issues and get everyone on board for how the market is going to run this year. When vendors are prepared for the season, maybe sometimes their expectations are managed. Again, we know there's no guarantee and there are always going to be those issues. But the more that you can preempt those common things that pop up with setting those clear expectations and rules and policies, hopefully the better, right? And then if there's a way to do any pre-market tasks in that meeting that save that from having to happen on the first day or the first few weeks of market. So maybe you're inviting weights and measures and everyone's bringing their scales to the meeting. Or maybe you're reviewing everyone's permits or liability insurance or doing some of those checkoffs that are really important. Maybe you can get those done at the meeting. And again, time is limited, but these are just some things that I've seen. All right, so moving on from that, just a little bit about setting up a good training. It's good to set those goals. Focus on what you need your vendors to know and do, and a little bit of justification of why. Why it makes sense for us to do unloading and loading in this manner, or why it makes sense for us to have the organization or the layout that we have. These things really can help. Adults learn best when they understand why they need to learn something, when the time is right for them to learn, if they have the freedom to learn in their own way. So maybe giving them written materials as well as verbal and maybe, a presentation. If they get to practice or run through something and do that hands-on, that's also very beneficial. And if the whole process is positive and encouraging, it's probably easier to be positive and encouraging at the beginning of the season before some of those conflicts have started to happen. So that's another reason to do vendor trainings before you start. So just a few key things to keep in mind for all training with adults: motivations, right? Why do your vendors want to be at your market? What prior knowledge and experience are they bringing to the table, or what do they think they know? How are the policies and procedures relevant and practical to your vendors? And then respect. Respect can take many forms, and it definitely goes both ways. But if you set up an atmosphere of respecting your vendors and really expecting respect from them, that can go a long way. So we want to give you an opportunity to share your experience with each other and then come back and report out to us a little bit. So we're going to be sending you into breakout rooms, and they're going to be small. There's only going to be 3 or 4 of you in a room so that everyone gets to talk. You're going to have, and we are very lucky to have on very short notice, Tiffany Jeske from South Central District Health, who is going to talk to us about some of those things that we all need to know as managers, as market supporters, that relate to our health department and some of those rules, regulations, and best practices. All right, we're ready to transition the screen. That's looking good. Perfect. That looks great to me. You're on.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. Yes, this was short notice, but basically what Mel told me was turnabout was fair play, because last year I volunteered her for an event and this year she volunteered me for one. So basically, we're doing farmers markets. My understanding is most of you guys are organizers and managers. So I'm not going to speak to the vending stuff as much, though I will email out resources later after the presentation for those who want them. My main goal in being here is to encourage you all to use your local health inspector as a resource who can help make your markets be safe, successful, and legal. So I am one of 10 health inspectors at South Central Public Health District. We are kind of this awkward salmon color that's in the middle. I suppose that is appropriate because we have Buell, which is the salmon capital of the world. The country of Brazil actually just recently took first place, and Buell is still not over that. But anyway, it's a very rural area. My office is here in Gooding. Gooding County has a greater population of large ungulates than people. So a lot of my examples will have cattle and sheep. Just bear with me. They will still apply to whatever your application is. Just to get the other housekeeping items out of the way, I am only speaking to what is effective currently. As of March 5th, 2026. Guys, sometimes things change. And some of you probably know why I'm saying that. I will address that at the end of this. They haven't changed yet. So just keep in touch with your local health districts. All 7 health districts cover and comply with the same food code and state regulations. However, local ordinances um, will also apply. So even within the same county, ordinances can vary by city. So that said, please use your city and county offices to your advantage. So back to me. You can see my credentials here if you care about those. Other notable accomplishments of mine include riding a mechanical bull for 6 seconds. I have ridden downhill in a tractor tire without breaking myself or my grandparents' property, and I have won $20 for downing an entire packet of Vegemite. That was an accomplishment. So today, let's go back. Um, what we want to do is run a safe, successful, and legal market. And honestly, guys, you guys have the hardest job. I have my little specialized corner. ISDA has their little specialized corner, but you guys are expected to know a little bit of everything. So from the city all the way up to federal, no one wants your market to fail. Many of the issues that we see are due to gaps in understanding. And so by addressing those gaps, we hope to prevent rather than react to issues that might arise. So please form a relationship with your regulators, ask questions. No one is going to say, how dare you for wanting to run a safe market, okay? So speaking of questions, you are welcome to ask questions at any time. If there are questions typed in the chat, I will not be answering those right away. I just am not talented enough to read and write and answer questions at the same time. So as coordinators, you guys do have a lot of responsibility. This is where it's handy to depend on who you know. Depending on your type of market, you should have contact for at least 4 agencies: USDA, ISDA, Dairy Bureau, which is a division of ISDA, and your local health district. And that is just for food. I realize the tax commission and other agencies might be involved for you guys as well. Here's a question that you as organizers absolutely have the right to ask. Do you have a food permit? There are 3 acceptable answers: yes, no, I don't know if I need one. Occasionally we have an honorary 4th answer that says, no, and I'm not going to get one because I don't want the government to tell me what to do. That happens. And guys, I respect the frustration, but if you're in the Walmart parking lot selling tepid cow tongue tamales that were butchered in Joe's backyard and made in Grandma's kitchen, you're going to get shut down. And after we shut you down, we will help you become licensed. So if any of your vendors are passionate about something and they want to sell something, guys, a lot of the stuff, there's very few things that are a hard no. It just depends on how much red tape or hoops they want to jump through. It can be done, and we can help them get there. And if we can't, if it's something that's federally regulated, we can make referrals to FDA. So start with your health district, and then we can help your vendors along the way. Something to know, I run into every year: seller's permits are separate from food establishment permits. Seller's permits are issued by the Idaho State Tax Commission. Food permits are issued by local health districts. And is Mel in this meeting, or is she not here? Okay. Gosh, I can't pick on her. This is Mel's permit. I did remove some of the information. So basically, what I was going to say is, Mel, do you have a current permit? Emphasis on current. Um, this is our permit. Every health district looks a little bit different, but here's the vital information. Um, establishment number, owner name, their capacity. A lot of market vendors say mobile or temporary. Mel, in this case, has a fixed permit. She's a meat market. Um, business name and a date. Does anyone see a problem with this permit? Yeah, yeah. So, guys, Mel is currently permitted. She's in good standing with the health district. I just used an old permit here. Um, this is from 2022. All of your vendors should have a valid current food permit. And all of the health districts will have those things that I mentioned: permit number, owner name, operation, business name, and expiration date. They might be in different places and formatted differently. I know Central District Health just does this little stub, but all the information is there. Um, some of your vendors may sell eligible cottage foods or be low risk exempt. Here's an example of one of my cottage food vendors. This is not a permit. This is an exemption. So this vendor is exempt from licensure so long as she operates within the parameters set forth by the Idaho State Legislature. We do request that these vendors submit a new form annually because sometimes their products change and sometimes our rules change. Um, that might have. I guess I didn't put an animation on that. That's unfortunate. So, um, oh goodness. So basically, there's four things on this slide. Don't worry about that one that's hovering over the top right now. As your event draws nearer, send a list of your food vendors and contact info to your local health inspector. We like that to be at least 2 weeks in advance so that we can work with any stragglers and help get them licensed in time for their first event. Another thing to know is that our licenses and exemptions are valid statewide. So Mel could go to Pocatello and be fine. It's valid. This lady, I X'd out her name, but this business, she actually does go to Elmore County, which is Central District, and she's fine. They accept this exemption. It does have our logo at the top, but it is a state form. So that's something I get a question every time. I'm licensed by District 6 or District 7. Does that still count? Yes, it absolutely does if it's still current. So something as food vendors we want you guys to be aware of is waste. So what types of waste are generated at public events? And I realize you might all be muted, so you could type it in the chat if you want. So there's going to be three. Yep. And McKenna, that is specifically what we call solid waste. Yep, there's more solid waste. Okay. So I think we got solid waste down. Um, that's going to be basically trash. So that's food scraps, utensils, paper products. Check your local ordinances for disposal recycling requirements for your area. Um, some places provide this, some don't. That is a requirement of local health districts. We do manage solid waste as well. Another thing, yes, Mary brought up water, and I'm going to address that after I address this next one. Black waste. So public restrooms. Are there public restrooms available? Are you going to do porta potties? This table that's taking up the whole screen is actually the table from Department of Environmental Quality that has a formula for, I have 450 people. The event is 2 hours. They recommend you have 4 porta potties. So there actually is a formula for that, and I can send that to you guys as well. Basically, Ariel, probably what I'll do is send it to you and you can disseminate the information as you see fit. Okay, great. Um, the third thing that Mary in the chat brought up was water. And gray water in Idaho is considered septic waste. So consider that many diseases are fecal oral. So if you wash your hands well, great, but consider where that dirty hand washing water is going. Is it spilling out on the ground? We actually see that a lot. Is there a toddler playing nearby in the grass that was just watered with your dirty hand washing water? So you need an approved, if your venue doesn't provide it, you might consider providing it or make sure that your vendors provide approved wastewater disposal. Same goes for dishwasher or dishwater, I'm sorry. A vendor once told me, I wasn't dumping my bleach water onto the ground. I was dumping it into the ground. So yeah, kudos for understanding your prepositions. You passed fifth grade. Awesome. But not an approved means of wastewater. So when I went to that fair later the week in that week, I discovered that multiple vendors had then dumped their bleach water down the vole holes. And those little voles that came floating to the surface now littered the fairgrounds. So this now became not just a wastewater issue, it became a zoonotic disease issue. And I am also the contact at the district for pest nuisances and zoonotic diseases. So I got to refer that case to myself. So again, Idaho considers gray water septic waste. It must be disposed of at approved dump sites. Many cities, at least in this area, have public access dump sites. Some RV parks allow dumping of dishwater, some don't. Um, our counties of Jerome and Twin Falls actually require a signed agreement with particularly mobiles and a septic company. I don't know that every district or county is that strict. It's not even that strict in all of our 8 counties, but I anticipate that's something that might start happening more. So if there's a lot of organic debris or grease in the dishwater, that's actually really hard to treat. Municipal wastewater facilities kind of have the infrastructure to treat that, but small RV dump sites and residential drain fields don't. So I was involved with a septic repair for a family who also owned a food truck. Turns out they were dumping their wastewater into their private drain field. And over time, that grease just built up and it destroyed their drain field. So it is very, very important that they are dumping their wastewater in approved places. Some venues provide all or none of these resources. If no services are provided, it actually is the responsibility of every food vendor to provide approved disposal for solid waste and gray water. We don't have a bathroom requirement for them. Um, but solid waste and gray water, they must have. Some vendors do say, "Oh, I'm using the disposal at the fairgrounds," but I know enough in my area. Oh, my fairgrounds doesn't actually have that, so you need to come up with your own disposal. So that's something that you as vendors, if you reach out to your venues and say, what waste services do you provide? That can then be relayed to your food vendors.
Tiffany,
Any
I had a
questions on that?
yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, so this may be outside of the realm of gray water, but we have a number of farmers who bring fresh cut flowers, and those flowers sit in buckets. There's no grease, there's no hand washing, there's no bleach, there's no chemicals, but at the end of the market, it's a lot to haul a bucket back. A lot of them are just pouring that out. Is that in any way in scope for concerns from PhD? Or I should say from the health department. It's not
No, that would actually be from us. No, that would actually be referred to Department of Ag.
okay.
That would be considered irrigation.
Mm,
Um, so anything that's used for like growth of plants or freshness of plants, that's actually more managed by canal companies and Department of Ag. Um, I wouldn't worry about fresh flowers so much because honestly, it's keeping a fresh flower. And then if they go dump it in the bush, it's really the same nutrients that are in there that any other plant would need. I'm mainly concerned if your water has soap, bacteria from
yeah,
hands, or food.
contaminants.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something that could potentially be a contaminant.
yeah. Great. Thank you.
Yep. The same rules apply to water. Oh, okay. That was the question you typed in there. Yeah. Okay. So I think we addressed that. Anybody else before we move on? Okay. And I will give Ariel a copy of my slides, and so you guys can refer to this as you guys see fit. Oh, actually, here's that thing. So yeah, send a list of food vendors, inform your food vendors of any restrictions regarding waste water disposal at your site. That was the discussion we just had. And additional restrictions are your prerogative as event organizers. So I had a facility that had some extra restrictions, and it did cause a little heartache with some of the vendors. And so they came to me, and basically what I said is, that's not my jurisdiction. It is absolutely the prerogative of, though, of that market vendor if he or she wants to make that a requirement. And guys, if you have stricter requirements than we do, we're going to support you. So we might not have a document that makes them do it, but we will never throw you under the bus. Okay. I am going to touch briefly on vendor responsibilities just so you have an idea of what to tell them. Pretty much that subtitle essentially keeps it there. So, hot and cold holding. Are they heating? Are they hot holding? Are they cold holding? If so, they need a license. So, food trucks will usually already be licensed. When I talk about a temporary or temp vendor, think pop-up tent, like county fair pop-up tent. I do have some temp vendors at my farmers markets. They're making tamales or funnel cakes or lots of snow cone makers. So basically look for things that we call them TCS foods. You might hear that word go around. Things that require time or temperature control for safety absolutely needs a license. This is a challenge sometime if they're offering samples, like they're cutting their melons on site. Guys, that's food prep. Um, and I had this conversation last year with one of my vendors. Nature, as it's designed, a lot of our produce has this beautiful natural barrier, a biodegradable wrapper. But once you cut through it, it is susceptible um, contamination. So like if we cut our natural barrier, our skin, we say it, we're susceptible to infection. It's the same thing with food. So you cut the skin of something, you make it susceptible to infection, or in food terms, contamination. And so um, you need a license for that. Um, I generally have those people become temporary vendors. They can prepare it all on site, get a hand washing station and a dishwashing station, and they're all set. So we do have emphasis on eligible cottage foods and low risk foods. Basically, cottage foods are foods that are made in the home. Not all foods that are made in your home are eligible cottage foods. And so things like that exemption that I just showed you, she's making baked goods and they're actually all pretty dry. Like there's scones and muffins that have butter-free buttercream icing. I have a really high Hispanic population here, and they actually use Crisco in their buttercream. Extremely shelf stable. So those are eligible cottage foods. Now you might make something in your home, so it's still a cottage food, but it's like a tamale, not an eligible cottage food, because that's something that puts you back in the heating, cooking, hot holding, cold holding realm. And again, we do recommend they have that exemption form annually. So most of my vendors out here anyway, participate in more than one market or event. And so you might not always see your vendors be inspected, but licensed vendors are inspected at least once per year. It might be at your event, it might be at an event in Pocatello or Glens Ferry or Twin Falls, but licensed vendors will be inspected. Exempt vendors, I usually still pop in and introduce myself and ask if they have questions. It's an open dialogue. I want you to think of exempt vendors as exempt from regulation. That's the lingo we'll use. It's exempt from regulation, exempt from licensure. It is not exempt from using common sense. So if they're making snow cones, which are usually exempt, most snow cones are, unless you're putting cream on them, and they drop their snow cone on the ground and then give it to someone. So technically, I'm not giving them a violation for that. They're exempt. You bet I'm going to go talk to them though. You know, if my baker drops her sourdough bread on the ground or a dog runs off with it and she still tries to sell it, you bet I'm going to go talk to her, even though she's exempt. Um, any questions on this portion?
I have a lot of questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, on the cottage food assessment form, our health inspector was telling all the vendors to list every single ingredient they're going to be using to make their cookies and muffins and stuff. But I noticed on yours, you didn't have them writing all the ingredients.
She gave me an ingredient list.
Okay, so
yeah.
it is necessary.
Yeah. Here's the hard thing with exempt vendors is if they're exempt, there's a lot of things we can't make them do. This lady actually submitted an ingredient list for all of her items and an example label. So those are good things to have. She is an exemplary vendor. Her labels actually include allergen statements as well.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay, perfect. And then let's see. If they were gonna cut up like say apples or something for samples, could the vendors cut up fruit to give away for free as samples?
Under the current guidelines, it has to be a fruit that has a pH of 4.6 or less. So if they're, that's why you'll see us not really pick on lemonade vendors. Like you'll see people making fresh squeezed lemonade at a stand. They're usually exempt because just the natural acidity of that lemon discourages microbial growth, especially in the small time frame that they're operating. So as long as they're making it there, and anything that's cut is disposed of, we're generally okay with what we call acidic produce being served as a sample.
Okay, and do lemonade vendors need the cottage food assessment exempt form?
We recommend it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never think of that. Okay, and then let's see. I was curious about eggs.
Yeah. So you have people wanting to do farm fresh eggs.
Yeah.
So we actually have the state has an exemption, again, another form that's statewide. And the requirement on that is 300 laying hens or less. And then no more than, I think, 10% can be dirty. So we wouldn't want fecal material or straw or anything on there. And they must be labeled as ungraded and uninspected.
Okay, and they can be unwashed and then they don't have to be refrigerated or anything, right?
They actually don't have to be refrigerated.
Okay.
Now, you bring up a really good point. Did you have any other egg questions before I go on this rabbit trail with eggs?
No, just yeah,
Okay.
I just wanted to know the regulations on them.
Yeah, so regarding eggs, there is an exemption form that I can send out as well. Let me write that down real quick. That is specific to laying hens. And so if you have an old hen around and it's not laying, that does not get counted towards the total quantity. Here's the deal with not refrigerating eggs. I'm not sure where you're all from in this area. It can get 100+ degrees. And so those eggs can actually start partially cooking, or if they're fertilized, they can actually continue developing. I'm not sure how many of you have incubated eggs, but above 100 degrees, you can still hatch an egg. And so as the temperatures get a little warmer, we actually do recommend that they're either refrigerated or kept cool. We don't really put a number on it. Obviously, the number for regulated products is 41 or below. But especially if your clients, your vendors have roosters, we highly, highly recommend that they keep things cool and collect their eggs every day. That's actually a question I ask my egg vendors is how often do you collect your eggs? And if it's like once a week, District 6 actually had an incident where someone went to their farmer's market, went home, and found a partially developed chick. And so that's why I say, okay, collect them every day, keep them cold. It's just a good practice. Can I make them do it? No, but I think it's a good education point. And after sharing that horror story at Mel's pre-event meeting, all of my vendors refrigerate their eggs. So it's just especially the ones who have roosters. Do you have any more questions, Carly?
Well, just one more. Thank you for the eggs. And then what if people wanted to sell or wanted to have baked goods, but they just do it as donations? Are they exempt from all the stuff if they're not?
So they would be cottage food exempt if they're selling eligible cottage foods, but because they're selling it to the public, they would still need either the cottage food exemption or possibly a seller's permit. The only bakers that are totally off our radar are bakers that do private parties that do not sell to the public, like someone essentially hired them as their private chef. Like if someone says, I have a quinceanera and I want you to make this elaborate cake, that's a private event.
Okay.
So anyone participating in a public event is possibly subject to to regulation.
Okay, that makes sense. Perfect. All right, that was all my questions.
All right.
Thank you.
Let me see the questions in the chat. Is Mary says, is it new this year that the food license is valid throughout the state? As far as I know, that's not new. Um, licenses are valid statewide. That might be a policy, maybe an internal policy of Southwest District. Um, generally speaking, though, I have a vendor that comes from Southwest, and she honestly just sends me a copy of her permit, and she's good to go. There is an element of trust there. I just assume that my counterparts in Southwest or Central or wherever they're from are following the same standards, but I would follow up with Southwest and see if that's just an internal policy. Because if it is, we follow their internal policy. Um, but yeah, it should be. I mean, it's the other districts that I'm aware of accept other districts' licenses. So if it's a temporary vendor, and they're traveling between districts, they should list the events. So that is something we do come in contact with. Like I had someone go to Pocatello and she did have a current food license from South Central, but Southeast then said, well, she's here, but she didn't list our event on the application. That can be a concern. And so I would encourage if you have a temporary vendor on the last page of most of these applications, it has them list the events they're at. So that could potentially eliminate some of those issues. Okay. So, and yes, I am pretty much done. These are the most common violations we see in temporary vendors. I will address hot and cold holding. If you're doing a pre-event meeting, I don't know if your local health inspectors come, but what I do is I actually bring a cooler and I put example foods in there. And I actually have things like I get some cheap lunch meat and I say, this has been out for an hour. This has been out for 30 minutes. And our formula for coolers is actually 3 parts ice to 1 part food. That seems excessive, guys, but if you're out there in the sun, that's what it takes to keep food cold. Any questions on anything else?
You mentioned in the last slide insect control, or I guess this one too. What is that?
So that is something that basically we could have your food vendor should have closed containers, especially if they're in an open air setting, so that ants don't crawl into their items or flies aren't landing on their samples. Like my cottage food vendor actually either individually wraps or keeps her items in a closed tray. And then she has some items for display purposes only. So people can still see what they're getting, but she has some for display purposes only so that if they were contaminated by some insect, that person isn't eating it. Another one, guys, are flying insects. If you guys have like soda fountains and snow cones, I actually have seen bees crawl into the syrup bottles and there's like a bee floating in the bottom. So like those Torani and Da Vinci syrups, they actually make caps for their spouts. So I recommend that to all my vendors unless they want a fly landing in their syrup. Yes, I've seen it. So anything else? And Ariel, my last slide was honestly not complete. It was just mainly contacts for ISDA, USDA. We have a new USDA contact for this region. It'd be the same in Central District
Okay.
as it is in here.
Yeah. Do you have that slide?
Um,
Oh, I see. Oh, this is all good stuff that we could include in the
yeah,
attachments to the recording. Definitely.
yeah,
Oh, this is wonderful.
yeah. So basically, oh yeah. So I'll just send those to you, and then we'll be fine. The other ones were just kind of awful examples of this person's doing this. What kind of license do they need? So you can Q&A or do whatever you want internally, but I'll make sure you get those.
That's great. And so what we'll do is we'll post the recording of the video, and then we'll attach as like underneath it in the notes the slides themselves, so you can go in and look at them one by one.
Great. Okay. That sounds good.
This is fantastic. This is really useful information, and obviously based on the questions, it is something that we needed. So great. We've got one more question in the chat. Just how do we keep up with the annual changes and updates on health regulations? What's the best way to stay up to date?
Keep in contact with your health inspector. We do keep in contact with Idaho Department of Health and Welfare, as well as we follow the legislative rules. There are two bills. There's a House bill and a Senate bill right now that are actively in legislature that can radically change cottage rules. I intentionally did not address that, but I will send you those in case you guys want to start tracking those. Guys, the hard thing on that is if they're effective, it's July 1st. It's the middle of market season. So that'll be fun. But work with your inspectors. They're probably the best ones who will have the most current information.
And we will keep an eye on that too, and try to be that voice of letting you know if we see something too.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. This is amazing. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem. So I'll send this over to Ariel, and if there is nothing else, I'll go ahead and log off.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sure you'll be hearing from some of us.
Okay, that is fine. Feel free to reach out to me.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right. As usual, I planned way too much for our state day, but we're gonna keep going ahead. And like I said, if you're listening, if you need to take a quick break, please feel free to do it. We've got two more presentations today to round us out, and the next one is going to be Dawn, our valuable partner at ISDA and Idaho Preferred, sharing a little bit about what is on the forecast for the next year and how you can utilize those resources to promote your market. So Dawn, if you're ready, you are up.
Okay, thank you, Ariel. Let's see, can you guys see my screen? Yes, okay, perfect. Whoops, what's going on here? Sorry, I'm trying to get my speaker notes up too. Okay. Well, my name is Dawn Larslier, and I am a program specialist with the Idaho Preferred Program at the Idaho State Department of Agriculture. And I am super excited to be here today to help you guys with this farmers market promotions. So let's go ahead. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly run through this. I know a lot of you have seen our presentation in the past, but there's always questions. A lot of people always say, oh, I didn't know that you guys did all of that. But essentially, the Idaho Preferred Program is a state branded program, and it's housed under the umbrella of the Idaho State Department of Agriculture's Market Development Division. And so our primary goal is to help promote, connect, and educate Idaho farmers so that we can help them grow their marketplaces. As far as the program goes, we do have some eligibility requirements. We are focused on our domestic, produce products, farm-grown agricultural products. And so there are some eligibility requirements in order to become a member of the Idaho Preferred Program. But we've been around for over 23, going on 23 years. And we have about 340 members, and that includes producers, processors, chefs, restaurants, supporting organizations, farmers markets, of which all farmers markets in the state of Idaho are complimentary members. And let's see, we got one of the biggest benefits of the Idaho Preferred Program is the fact that because of the eligibility requirements, we are basically vetting local products. So our logo is one of the biggest benefits that we offer. If you are a member, you have the ability to place the Idaho Preferred logo on your products, as well as use it as signage at your local events, your farmers market booth. Essentially, what it's saying is that the Idaho Preferred logo tells consumers and business owners quickly, you're from Idaho. So it's a vetted, branded logo that helps you market your stuff as local domestic product. Let's see, I'm sorry, I'm switching through these slides here. I posted the link to, part of our mission is to help educate farmers and agricultural producers throughout the state. And earlier, right after our breakout session, I posted the link to the Establishing a Farmers Market in Idaho booklet. So go through the chat and look at that link. If anybody wants a copy of this, please let me know. I'm happy to send you a copy in the mail as well. But the link for the full booklet is there. It goes over everything that Tiffany not everything that Tiffany went over. It gives a good overview, et cetera. But everything you need to know about establishing a farmer's market in Idaho. Let's see, we do our annual farmers market directory. We've got a new staff member with the Idaho Preferred Program. Her name is Ashley Morrell, and she is currently working on updating the farmers market directory. And this is a brochure that we publish every year. And essentially it lists all of the farmers markets throughout the state of Idaho, broken down by region. And if you haven't already submitted your updated contact information, please get that into us. Ashley may have already reached out to you, either by phone or email, so that we can finish updating the directory and go to print. We publish last year, I believe we did 15,000 copies of this, and it's in English and Spanish. And then we distribute it throughout the entire state at at statewide, like visitor centers, chambers of commerce, all sorts of different places where libraries, people will get this information. In addition to this, we also provide our farmers markets individual market profile pages. So please take a look at the Idaho Preferred website and make sure that your information is correct, because this serves as a statewide directory for people who want quick access digitally to find their local farmers markets. Going to say too, we provide all sorts of different marketing initiatives. We send a newsletter. I wanted to include this so that you can kind of see what our audience looks like. We send a monthly newsletter to both consumers and to businesses. So if farmers market managers have any upcoming events or have a need within the business community or within the agricultural community, feel free to let us know, because we're happy to share that information and distribute it out to our list. And actually, these are outdated numbers. Our list has grown exponentially over the past year. We have about 9,000 members or subscribers on our consumer newsletter list and roughly about 3,000 on our business list. And this is an important thing that I wanted to talk about. And since we're here talking about prepping for farmers market season, something that we do every year is Idaho Farmers Market Month. And this is a huge celebration. We recognize that Idaho farmers markets serve in so many different ways to support our farmers and our communities and the quality of life for Idahoans all across the state. So August is Idaho Farmers Market Month. And what we do is we work with the Office of the Governor to get a proclamation declaring the month as farmers. This is old. This is Farmers Market Week, but this was from a couple of years ago. Farmers Market Month is the entire month of August. And we did change that from Farmers Market Week to Farmers Market Month because we recognize that with the amount of farmers markets that we have in the state of Idaho, we just needed that extra time to help support and promote. So we send out a marketing toolkit, which includes things like this market tote bag that we provide to you, to market managers, complimentary, a good handful of them that you can use to pass out to your audience member, your customers, or give to your vendors as giveaways, or however you choose to use these for your part of the promotion. We also have this fresh new logo. I prefer fresh from Idaho Farmers Markets. We use this in all of our marketing for Idaho Farmers Markets. And of course, we heavily promote across our newsletter distribution list. We heavily promote on our social media platforms, which includes Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And I'm going to talk to you now a little bit. I'm going to skip through these here. I'm going to talk to you about how we can collaborate on social media. No biggie. It gives you an idea of what our social media platforms look like. But here's our digital marketing kit that we put together in anticipation of Farmers Market Month. We have a separate page here. You can scan that QR code on the slide there, and it will take you to our digital marketing toolkit. This has not been updated for the 2026 year yet, but you can see that we provide a number of different resources for farmers market managers to help spread awareness of how vital our farmers markets are throughout the state. And then we also have some collaboration efforts. You can use these social media graphics on your own social media account. Tag us when you do. We'll help spread the word. And just different ideas, tips, and resources that you can use to help engage your customers as they come to the market, and also get your buy-in from your farmers market vendors. I'm not sure how much time I have left, but I want to say that the power of collaborations through our social media is, it's just going to give everybody a lift. We've collaborated over the years with numerous different farmers markets to help celebrate and promote the Farmers Market Week, Farmers Market Month, and producers. And it's just, our testament is that we've reached over 1.5 million people on social media platforms. So it's a powerful tool when you know how to use it. And so I want to give you a takeaway that you can use immediately. I know that farmers market season, we're still a few weeks out, but I think that it's really important that we be mindful of our posting cadence as we're getting ready for farmers market season. I understand that a lot of market managers are volunteers, some don't get paid, but I feel like posting to your social media platforms throughout the year is a great way to keep your audience engaged and public aware of what is going on at your market. So the more that you can collaborate with your vendors and your audience members, the more engagement you're going to see on your social media platforms. So Here we go. Tip number 1, be mindful of your posting cadence. I recommend that you don't post the same day of your events. I'd post your content ahead of time to build anticipation and momentum. And then as a natural lift, collaborate often. You guys have kind of a built-in, I want to call it a built-in ethical engagement pod, if you will, on Instagram, for instance. Having collaboration tags with all of your vendors will help amplify your reach, and it also helps amplify their reach. So maybe one of the things that you can do when you're setting up your vendors' planning meetings ahead of the open season is to collect all of your vendors' social media handles so that you can follow them and have them follow you as well. And every time you post anything about your market, tag them in your, tag them in your stories, share this post to your stories and mention them. This kind of creates a natural engagement pod. And when you share to your stories, people most likely will reshare as well. And so what that does is that it creates kind of a low effort, high impact strategy that helps your market managers expand the reach of their posts without really increasing your workload or increasing your ad spend. The more that you can use that collab feature, it's a powerful feature. And I think that it is way underutilized, especially for farmers markets. Farmers markets are, I think, built for Instagram. It captures everything about lifestyle and food and all the cool things that people go to the market to experience and shop for. You have so many opportunities for capturing content and resharing with both your vendors and your audience members. Have your vendors agree to comment, share, save, reshare all of your posts. And if you notice that your vendors are tagging you, do the same for them. I think that making it as authentic as possible is key, but commenting within the first 15 minutes of a post going live is going to extend that reach as well. It's going to trigger the algorithm to bring engagement to your message and let people know, hey, this is what we're doing now. I'm going to skip ahead. Collaborate with your vendors, but also collaborate with your audience members. Erica, our program manager, had a really great idea or suggestion about utilizing your audience, your customers as a great way, poll them in real time as they show up at your market, ask them what they're here to shop for today, and then share the post with them on their social media. People love that stuff and they will reshare it out to their platform as well. Another thing is, I think this is kind of an underutilized tip, and that is to showcase your customers. Do you have chefs that are coming to shop at your local farmers market? Maybe do a feature of their restaurant and show the chef shopping from a vendor at your farmers market. Tag the vendor, tag the restaurant. Basically, the more that we can engage with our audience and our vendors, again, the more we're going to amplify that reach and spread the message. So I would recommend that using these low effort, high impact strategies, I would start with that. But Ariel and I have talked about going further in depth with social media strategies that can help your farmers market spread the word and, again, use it as a marketing tool to low cost low effort, high impact marketing tool that will help spread the word and create excitement and anticipation for when your market is open. So let's see. With that, I think I just wanted to, if anybody has any questions or comments, we can open that up. But I wanted to share, this is our Idaho Preferred team. And if you have any questions or comments, please email me. I'm happy to help. And I'm also happy to get on a phone call and strategize with you guys.
Thank you so much, Dawn. There is so much that you offer, and I did not want to rush you through that at all. This is such good information. I did post in the chat the link to update your directory information if you have not already as a market. And we're going to ask you at the very end of today about what topics you would like to see some more in-depth webinars on that are for our audiences. And having Dawn present on using social media to your best advantage was one of those topics. And you can tell that she knows what she's talking about. All right, I want to jump ahead because I want Dave to be able to share what he had prepared for us. And then when he's done, then I will launch a couple little polls at the end just to get some more like input from you on what you want us to cover into the future. Because I know that we really wanted to try to keep this meeting to 2 hours because it's a lot of Zooming. So thank you, Dawn. And if you can stay on, Dave, I would love for you to share what you had prepared on engaging volunteers, because I think that is a crucial piece of how we strengthen and build our market support and how we keep them going. So it's all yours. Looks good.
You're muted.
Yeah. Can you see my screen? Did I share properly? Okay, good. Thanks. I'll try to go quick here. Jumped right ahead. Yes, I'm excited to talk about volunteerism, and it is one of these areas where we could probably talk about it for a long time. There's so many different elements to it, but I think, just to kind of get a basic overview, I'm part of two nonprofits that have pretty robust volunteer programs. The Boise Farmers Market has a pretty robust volunteer program, and City of Good uses volunteers extensively for both helping with the mobile market and for delivery of food pickup and delivery of food products. So those programs are driven by, I think, in general, people love their food system. People love farmers markets. When you think about farmers markets, I don't know, I've talked to countless people at farmers markets, and it's like, oh, we don't know where to find volunteers. I'm like, are you kidding me? They're shopping here every week at your farmers market. They want to participate in the market. They want to be part of it. So it's pretty easy. We found it's been pretty easy to find volunteers. I think the Boise Farmers Market volunteer program, prior to the pandemic, the Boise Farmers Market had volunteers. I would say our program was not defined at all. It's just show up and help. It was, well intended. Probably some of our best volunteers were board members, vendors themselves, their family members that showed up. We all know that. But I think one of the things that's unique about the Boise Farmers Market is their board composition itself. It allows for 30% of the board to be community board members, which are not vendors or not directly part of the farmers market. And that allowed the farmers market board to recruit some community board members that brought a different skill set. And that really paid off when the pandemic hit, because when the pandemic hit, everything changed. We had to quickly shift to a pre-order drive-through system to be able to help farmers get their products out. And that demanded not just a lot of volunteers, but a lot of management support to be able to help navigate that, and structural support in terms of like, how do we make this work? We quickly went from, having a ragtag volunteer operation to having over 100 people a week showing up at the farmers market and needing direction. And that allowed us to professionalize the system at the Boise Farmers Market, which I think is unique and not very helpful to a lot of people, other than it taught me one really important thing, and that is sometimes when we think about programs like this, I think understanding the need first is important. So understanding why you might need a volunteer and what their purpose is comes before you create a system for it. You can create a system, but if you don't have a need, it doesn't work. We had a clear need for volunteers, and all of a sudden we were able to put it to work. The beauty of that is that that volunteer system is synergistic. The volunteers themselves become the leaders. They find ways to make other things where volunteers can go to work happen. So at the Boise Farmers Market, we had the drive-through program across the country. Many of the, I don't even know if there's another one that's in existence. I'm trying to find another farmers market that still has a pre-order drive-through system, and I can't find one. The Boise Farmers Market system stayed together because the volunteers wanted to keep doing it, and the customers wanted to keep using it. And those volunteers today help with other programs at the Boise Farmers Market, including things like our green team, which works on sustainability, which I think is just a terrific effort that's helping Boise Farmers Market become a zero waste market. They support the info booth. They help at events. They work with the SNAP support. This fall, having that volunteer program allowed us to give out almost $100,000 in extra SNAP benefits, because not only did the volunteers help support that, they helped in the fundraising effort. They're community advocates, and so they just do so much. What do volunteers need, I think, is one of the lessons I've learned over the years with working with volunteers. The most important thing is volunteers need purpose. They need to feel like what they're doing is useful. You know, we had a lot of examples of this where a volunteer would show up and someone would be well-intended and say, "Oh, we don't need you today." And my job was always, wait, we do need you. Hang on a second. And even if I didn't know what their need was, if they showed up, we were going to find purpose for their role. And as we've learned over time, you know, when volunteers show up, they want to volunteer, but they want to know more than anything that what they're doing has purpose, that it's useful. And so I think it's really important when we do invite volunteers to participate in our market activities that we've thought about that in advance, and we make sure when they show up that it feels like it's organized and that what they're doing is worth their time. They want flexibility. You know, I think that on average, across the country, volunteer hours are down. I think a big part of it is because, you know, there was a big spike during the pandemic of people volunteering, and now people are a little bit more resource constrained. And so they're not volunteering as much as they used to. That said, if it feels purposeful to them, people still want to volunteer. What they want more than anything today is flexibility. So I think having a good system that allows them to pick what they can do and pick when they do it, that's really important. Volunteers, they're happy to show up when you need them, but they want some flexibility in that. And I think the more upfront capacity you can give them so that they have some control over that, that's important. They want to feel empowered. You know, I think I've always felt like you need to give up control to gain control. And this is a hard one, you know, sometimes with staff and volunteers. Where's that fine line between staff control over an operation and what you let a volunteer do? The more, though, that we can let our volunteers provide input, become directly involved in the operation where they feel like they're heard and where their ideas are considered, I think the more engagement you get out of them. Sometimes this is, it can drive us nuts that if you've worked with volunteers long enough, you know, there's those volunteers that have way too many ideas and way too many opinions, and you just don't have capacity for it. And that's part of navigating it. But I think good volunteer coordination, which by the way, can come from volunteers themselves, is about making sure they're at least heard. We can't always take every idea and make it happen, but we can at least listen to those ideas. And I think that is a big thing that volunteers today who are the most engaged care about, that they feel like they have some level of empowerment in what they're doing. Starting from nothing. You know, I think I've talked with groups that are like, gosh, we just have never had a volunteer program. I don't even know where to start. And the truth is, you already have volunteers. Most nonprofits exist on volunteerism. The board itself are volunteers, or the initial market manager is a volunteer, whatever it is. And I think the most important thing is just to begin tracking that. Whoever is overseeing this, just making sure that you begin to create a system that just tracks what you're already doing, because those are volunteer roles, and recognizing it. The most important thing we do is like, we forget that sometimes these people we take for granted that are just showing up and setting up the market, even though they're a vendor or whatever it is, that we actually recognize that they're volunteering and doing something beyond their own stuff. From that, I think we name the roles. Like, we can look at what these people are already doing and begin to create structure around that as a role, because maybe because they're doing it, we can create a role around that other people can do because they already want to volunteer, and we can find something else even better for them to do. And so I think naming those roles and beginning to build structure around those initial roles, whatever they might be. For us, for example, one of our first roles was volunteer coordinator. And we ended up cycling, I think, about 5 volunteers through that role, which was terrific because those people all became leaders of other volunteer programs for us. And so the volunteer coordinator was a role I never imagined before working with these volunteer programs, but it was terrific because it allowed some leadership for a volunteer who already had leadership skills to participate. Anyway, naming the role of the things that your volunteers are already doing. Closing the loop, making sure again that, there is a system for recognizing those things that people are doing, whether it's, just the quick thank you after the market day, it's the mention in a board meeting, it's the nice card at the end of the season, whatever it is. It's just, you can't do enough. It goes so far to be able to say thank you to people who are volunteer. And then I think let roles grow and evolve as people begin to volunteer and you recognize their skills or their capacities. Find ways to let that evolve with them. Find ways to grow that role into something that you didn't expect. We have countless volunteers who work with us across the 2 nonprofits whose roles have now become community board members. So we had, one person that just kept showing up every week who was terrific and started to organize our drive-through store for us and became invaluable in that role because he was dependable and showed up early every week. And it turns out he's an attorney, and today he's on our board and serves as our legal counsel. And this was just somebody who just showed up to volunteer. And he is probably one of the most irreplaceable people we have on our board today. I've talked through most of these, but I'll hit them really quick. I think, it's pretty self-explanatory, the benefits of volunteers. And once you get a program going, you recognize these things. But, volunteers extend your network. Volunteers have a whole network of friends and acquaintances that all of a sudden become part of your mission. When you add a volunteer to your team, they don't just show up. They bring their family. They bring their friends. They talk to their friends. They talk to their workers. And so all of a sudden you've expanded the especially for a farmer's market, the number of potential customers you have because you've got this new advocate out there. When you track them, that is really beneficial in fundraising and grant support. In grant support, those number of hours that you've got community engagement going on, that absolutely helps in getting those grants. Skills, they bring, countless numbers of skills. And a lot of times as we get to know volunteers, I'm always surprised at the variety and the diversity of skills that people bring and how we can engage them in different ways. And so things you hadn't even imagined happen when you start to have volunteer programs that engage different people. So marketing skills, data analysis skills, program management, and, general leadership. And I think, as you develop a donor program, for us, we have the Pollinator Society, for example, at the Boise Farmers Market. We create a level in that that's called worker bee. So every person that volunteers is part of our donor program. They're a member of our Pollinator Society, which are people who give, but they get a pin that says worker bee. So they're a member at that level of worker bee because volunteer hours are money. It is true money. But those people, not surprisingly, also become donors. And many of them are very good donors. There is, a lot of seniors, a lot of people who, they're already well set and the volunteer is meaningful to them. When they connect with the mission, they become donors. And to the extent that they're a volunteer, those volunteers tend to, on a lifetime scale, give a lot more to that effort than just a casual donor who donates because they like the program. Anyway, I'll kill it there for questions. A lot more we could talk about, but I promise to try to keep it short.
This is really great information. And I'm sure people have a lot of questions about how you actually were able to tap into that volunteer base, especially during COVID. And that could be a whole nother presentation. I am taking notes and I'm like next year, 3 hours, even though it's on Zoom, we'll just put in some bathroom breaks because there's just so much that we want to talk about. But I would love to bring Dave back now that he is on the board and one of our officers to, to give us like a full hour webinar on this topic. And Dave is also an amazing resource when it comes to fundraising. So we have got a resource that you all can benefit from in this new board member. But any questions for Dave before we finish up with the day? All right. Okay. Well, you'll have a chance to respond to the poll. And thank you, Dave. That was wonderful. I learned a lot too because we rely on volunteers in many of the things that we do in our different roles. And there are some good comments in the chat. Yes. Fantastic. All right. So last thing before we let you go, and thank you for those of you that are staying a few minutes over. Again, we do this to ourselves. We want to talk about too many things. But I wanted to close by giving you an opportunity to respond to a quick poll that we developed just to help us plan some upcoming educational opportunities this next coming year. So McKenna has launched the poll. And if there's something else, these are the ones that we know we have presenters that are ready to go on. But if there's something else you really want to know about, including, I think the vendor recruitment and retention and support piece is key. Put those into the chat. We will make sure to collect those. So a few different topics, and then also these would be like a webinar sort of format. And then we also thought about just pulling in managers that we know do something really well and having basically some live meetings one-on-one with them where we do kind of a roundtable question and answer and share best practices if that's something that might be of interest to you. So I'll stop talking for a minute, let you go ahead and choose those. Okay. And I know there was some typing, so some of you might still be putting some stuff in there. I think we're getting close to getting everybody. All right. All right, last chance. Raise your hand if you're still working on the survey. Perfect. I think that's everybody. Oh, maybe not. Okay. Fantastic. All right, I think you can end it, McKenna. All right. Do you want to share the results? We can just see what you all thought, and we'll be surveying the general membership as well. Great. All right. So yes, you want to know about voucher programs. You want to know about fundraising. So somebody is interested in all the topics. That's great. And then, yes, some of you are interested in potentially having those market manager roundtables. And then let's see, I don't know if it tells me what those short answers were. We may only be able to view those. No, we'll check on that. Okay. Well, excellent. Anything else that you want to put in into the chat, please do, and we will capture that for later. Fantastic. All right. So last thing, I just wanted to share, Dawn shared the Establishing Your Farmers Market in Idaho resource. This is a wonderful resource for any of you who are new to market management or just need a refresher. This one on the left, this is Cultivating Your Business. This is a guide for direct and small farm marketing in Idaho. This really goes through all of the current rules and regulations that govern how different products are produced, marketed, sold, managed. So this is a great resource to have like on your table as well. So you can quickly direct vendors to those sorts of answers. I might just send you all out a copy. I've got all your addresses. We might tuck it in your annual mailing this year because I've got boxes of this. And then the last thing on here on this sheet is our Idaho Farmers Market Association YouTube channel. That's where today's recordings will be listed. We'll also send out follow-up handouts via email to all of you. Thank you so much for being on live and participating. And then the last thing, if you haven't signed up yet, the Multi-State Farmers Market Boot Camp, $25 for IFMA members. Sign up. There's the QR code. You've gotten it in your email a couple times now. There's Manager Boot Camp on the 12th and 19th, and then just added, you might want to keep this in mind for your boards. There is a board boot camp that's March 31st, and it is going to be primarily targeted to Washington growers, but I think anybody who's on a farmers market board would benefit greatly for this, and I'm hoping that at least a couple of our IFMA board members can attend as well. So sign up for boot camp, share it with anybody else you know. I know some of you attended in the past and found it really valuable. So thank you again for joining us, for your patience and keeping with us a little bit over time. We're so grateful for everything you do. We're here to help you, and we really hope that you'll reach out and stay in contact with us.